Hello everyone, I'm Jess and welcome back to my channel Buried in Ink. Today I have something a little different for you. Some of my recent videos have been focused on some really large ink hauls that I purchased from so-and-so. However, I also around the same time ordered a fairly large order from Van Dieman's directly from Australia. So I have a ton of Van Dieman's ink. However, I've never actually ordered directly from their store in Australia. So the reason that I chose to do so this time is because they have some inks that either are very difficult to find outside of Australia, or just sell out really, really quickly, or are never even carried sometimes. So in particular, and I got very upset that I missed most of last year's, they do a ink of the month every single month. And 2025's inks of the month were stunning. So last year they did a theme, I think it was all like bugs or insects, and they were so cool. They had like a Luna moth green and I think like a rainbow scarab. I don't even remember all of them. Cuckoo wasps, very cool things. And I'm not a bug person, but these inks were incredible. I think there were only maybe 2 or 3 in the entire year that I didn't feel really bummed that I missed. So this year I really decided that I wanted to make sure I didn't miss those inks. So one interesting thing about those inks is that they are huge. They are 100 milliliter sized bottles. They don't come in a different size other than I think at the very end of the year, they release, I don't even know what it's called, but it's a collection of all 12 of the inks of the year in a smaller, I think 15 milliliter size bottle of each ink. I could be wrong on the size, but not 100 milliliters. So they do have the entire collection if you want to buy it all together. At least last year, I think that sold out fairly quickly. I know by the time I saw it, it was gone. But I really wanted to check out the 2026 inks of the year thus far. My order was placed back in April. I'm filming this in mid-July. I'm sorry, mid-June. And I ordered in April. At the time, they had 3 of their inks of the month up. I didn't see one for April, so I thought because it was my first time ordering, maybe that they just didn't post it. It was supposed to be a mystery, and that you got it. I think the sales pitch for the ink of the month is that if you order 10 or more inks directly from Van Dieman's, from their store, you automatically get the ink of the month. So I didn't know what it was, but I was super excited. I ordered January, February, and March's inks of the month because they were still in stock. And I was hoping that April's would appear with my order. It didn't. So when I got my order, I was really bummed. I made sure to add the amount of ink that I needed. I also tried a new collection that I'm going to show some of those inks today, but it didn't show up. So I emailed them, didn't hear back, and then I filled out their online question form, and come to find out they had been doing a big moving sale on their website, so I definitely gave them grace. I think that's why it took them so long to respond. But they said that because of their moving sale, they actually didn't end up having an April ink of the month, so I missed out on it. Their customer service is really great. They gave me a code to use at a later date because I missed out on it, and because I did qualify. So at some point at a later date, whenever I order from them again, I can basically get a free bottle of whatever ink of the month happens to be in stock at the time. So I'll do that later. But my understanding is that the May ink of the month was supposed to be for April. Now, I logged in June and I'm not seeing an ink of the month up, so I think it's possible the same thing might be happening again this month. I don't know. Maybe it'll come out later this month. But they do seem to be having a few issues with their ink of the month this year, and I think it has to do with them moving. I don't completely understand if they're just moving warehouses or if they are moving their entire operation somewhere else. But regardless, it seems like that was a very intense process for them and slowed down their operations a little bit. That being said, I got my order incredibly quickly for it coming all the way from Australia. I got it within a week and it shipped in less than 12 hours. I don't even remember the exact number of hours, but I was shocked by how quickly I got a shipping notification. And it wasn't one of those shipping notifications that you get and it is basically just where they've printed out a printing label or a packaging label and said that that means that it's shipped. No, they had it packed and to the actual mail carrier. I think it was Australia Post within hours. I was deeply impressed. So all of that being said, I got some really great deals, but I also did order several from their new collection. So if you don't follow Van Dieman's online, they have a beautiful new collection of inks, and there's a whole bunch of them. I'm only going to show some of them today. These are the ones I purchased, but it's called the World Oceans Collection, and they did it in collaboration with Pen Chalet. So if you're in the US, you don't have to necessarily order it all the way from Australia. You could order from Pen Chalet. I think that Van Dieman's and Pen Chalet are the only ones selling this line right now, but check around. I could be wrong about that. So they're doing the different oceans and seas. So this ink, as you can tell, is from their Atlantic collection, part of the collection. This one's called Gulf Stream. And we're just going to swatch out 10 of the inks that I purchased today. So I'm going to take a look at, let's see, 7 of the World Ocean inks and the 3 inks of the month that I was able to get my hands on. So like I said, this one is called Gulf Stream. This entire collection comes in the newer style 40 milliliter bottles, which are really nice. My materials today are the same as usual. I'm using a dot grid Tomoe River paper just to keep things easy. I have a little writing pad underneath. I'm using a glass dip pen. This particular one is from Fire Spider Glass. I'm sorry, this is not Fire Spider Glass. I have another jellyfish pen from him. This is by Hande Erbuk. She is from Turkey. Glass blower there, and you can find her pens on Etsy, which is where I purchased this. She also made me this super, super cute little pen holder with this for free, and it looks like the beach. We're going to be using a speedball B-nib to go ahead and do our actual swatching. And then I just have some jars of water. We've got clean water ready to go to dip. And I may have to change these out sooner than usual. A few of these colors are going to be very vibrant and fun to work with. And we have just some blotting paper so we don't make a huge mess. So we're going to go ahead and start with Gulf Stream. I'm not lucky enough to live on the ocean, but I live close to the ocean. The nearest really good beach from me is about 20 minutes away, but I think I'm only maybe 10 miles away from the actual coast. So I'm not on the Gulf Stream side, but we are on the Atlantic. And unsurprisingly, this is a really beautiful teal ink. There will be a mix of standard inks and shimmers today. I bought a few of each. And I don't think there's a single one that I was disappointed with. These are all really beautiful. There's also several more that I didn't get that I would like to try eventually. And there are some brand new ones that they didn't have when I ordered that I would also like to try. So plenty more to take a look at. Really, really beautiful ink. There is a little bit, I don't know if I would go so far as to call this chroma shading, but you do see a little bit of that color separation in the teal, and it is really beautiful. Now, I will say a few of the turquoise or teal inks in this collection, I think I purchased 3, and we're going to look at all 3 today. are stunning inks. I don't know that they are necessarily the most unique inks out there. I think that there are other brands that you can probably find something similar from. But if you don't already have a ton, or if like me, you just like to have all the inks, these are still stunning and I would highly recommend them. I don't think there was a single one I was disappointed with. Our next one is from the Indian Ocean collection, and this one is Warm Waters. So this one is going to be a little bit more of a turquoise than a teal. So a little bit lighter, and I think a little bit more blue leaning rather than green, if I remember correctly. This one is also a standard ink, so no shimmer. And this one I think is really what, especially for someone being from a non-tropical type place who moved to a more tropical space, is always kind of what I think of when I think of like tropical waters. That really beautiful turquoise, clear water. So this one is really, really nice and vibrant. But like I mentioned earlier, is this the most unique ink I've ever seen? No. I feel like I probably have a good handful of inks, at least, that are very similar to this. I know that Robert Oster in particular does really, really beautiful blues, greens, teals, turquoises that they're really well known for. I can pretty much guarantee they have two colors that are very similar to these. That being said, I'm still really happy that I have them. They're beautiful. So our next one is from the Pacific collection. This is Ka Moana Nui. My apologies if I am pronouncing that incorrectly. And I think, oh, I should have looked this up again. I think this is Hawaiian, something for like the ocean or the Great Ocean. This one, as you can see, is a shimmering ink. So this will be our first shimmer today. And again, maybe not the most unique ink, but this one is stunning. I really, ooh, I need to shake a little bit more. There's a lot of shimmer gunked up on the neck of the bottle. This is probably going to be a little bubbly, but that's okay. Much better. Oh, look how pretty those bubbles look. So kind of like Warm Waters, this one is a lighter, brighter turquoise. That being said, it is definitely not identical. And the shimmer in this one, I love. I can't remember exactly what color shimmer they said this was. I think it's a mixture. To me, it looks kind of champagne-y, at least in the bottle. It may have been a mixture of silver and gold, but we'll see. Get that agitated again. So this one's really pretty when it goes down, but this is going to look so much better once that shimmer pops up. Once we're all dry. And I promise these are not all turquoises and teals. Our next one, we are going to shift quite a bit. And this next one, like Warm Waters, is going to be part of the Indian, is it the Indian Ocean or Indian Sea collection? This one is called Spice Root. And this one I really like, despite not being a huge fan of browns in general. I really like that this one looks different on different papers. I've only tried it so far on the swatch cards that I do, which we will take a look at those at the end as well once these are all dry. But it looks different between my swatch cards and Tomoe River paper. And another nice thing about Van Dieman's website is that they swatch their inks on multiple different types of paper, at least 2 or 3, and put those pictures up on their site so that you can see how different their inks look on different papers, because some of them have quite a large difference in how the base color shows up and sometimes even how the shimmers show up. And that's not something that you usually see from a lot of brands. So I really appreciate that. I think that's very cool. But I did notice a very big difference. I'm not going to be doing multiple papers today like I did for Kitty Ink Pot. These are not necessarily chroma shading inks. So even though there is some difference between paper, this was really the only one that I think it would make a huge difference on. But we are going to take a look at the two swatch cards that I did and the Tomoe River paper just to see how different they look. And I hope this one shows up on camera how it looks in real life so that you can really see that difference. So this one reminds me, I don't know if this is what they were shooting for specifically, but this reminds me of like really beautiful desert sand dunes shimmering in the sun. I think that shimmer's already starting to pop out even on camera. But I'm excited for you to see what it looks like once it's dry. So our next ink is going to be super vibrant. I think it's the most vibrant of the day. And I went back and forth on this ink on the website. I think I added it and removed it from my cart probably a minimum of 4 times because I thought I already had some inks that were too similar to this. However, I did not realize just how vibrant it was going to be, and I do not have anything quite like this. So I'm glad I bought it. This is part of the Pacific collection, and it's called Polynesian Hibiscus. I mean, look how pretty just the art on that is too. I really like the artwork that they used for this collection. That's usually, I don't have a lot of a beef with Van Dieman's at all. They, I think, are a really fabulous ink company. I like their bottles aren't my favorite, particularly the 30 milliliter, but they do seem to be shifting away from those. Really the only thing I've ever, I think, had much of a complaint about with them is that I don't think their artwork looks very nice, and particularly the really older style that they had, like the Underwater collection, and I think there was one called like Nighttime or Nightlife, something like that. It was really difficult. The fonts that they used were really difficult to read. They were really goofy looking fonts. But it looks like they've ditched that. They're starting to go with something I think that looks a little bit more professional. It's still kind of artsy, but it's legible. I don't know, it just looks a little more classic. I think it's really pretty. I should have mentioned this one is another standard ink, so no shimmer here. But yeah, look just how vibrant that is. So pretty. Talk about a gorgeous, fun summer color. I also think this is perfect for like Hawaii. Now this next one is not going to be as vibrant. It is another one from the Pacific collection. You can tell I kind of favored some of the inks from that collection over the others. It looks like I only bought one from Atlantic. I bought one from the Arctic, which will be our last one to take a look at. So this one is Giant Pacific Octopus. And this is, as you can probably tell, going to be kind of a purpley color. It's a little bit more muted, but I think it's a really interesting shade. I think this is one a lot of people will actually really like. Hope this is coming through, but the different colors that kind of pop out in this one as it dries are really fun. I like this one a lot. And despite being part of this collection, I think of this as like a very summery collection overall. I mean, maybe with the exception of the Arctic selections. This one I feel like would be a really, really beautiful ink. You could use it all year round, but I think for fall in particular, this one would be stunning. I really like dusky purples for the fall. So our last ink from the World Oceans collection is from the Arctic. I think so far, I probably should have mentioned this, I think so far for every ocean or sea that they've done, they've chosen 4 inks to represent each. So I obviously didn't get all of them, not even close, but I tried to get at least one of each of the collections that were available at that point. So to represent the Arctic, this was my favorite from that collection. This is called 90 Degrees North. This one is, for those of you who've maybe watched a few or several of my videos, you will definitely see that this is right up my alley. It is a shimmering pale purple. It's beautiful. It's a predictable choice for me. I think it may have been the first one that I hit add to cart while I was shopping. And I mean, probably somewhat predictably, this Arctic collection has one, I forget if it's called Northern Lights or Aurora Borealis, but there is one that represents that. That was also really pretty. I will probably end up getting it eventually. It was a darker color. I want to say it was like a really dark, I think green leaning teal with obviously a ton of shimmer. But I think that one will end up being very popular as well. So unsurprisingly, I love this ink. It is so pretty. Pale purple with a little bit of blue and pink shading in there, and halo. I guess the blue is more the haloing. There is definitely some pink chroma shading in there though. So pretty. So that's it for my current collection from the World Oceans collection. That was a collaboration between Van Dieman's and Pen Chalet. Now our next 3 will be the first 3 inks from their 2026 Ink of the Month. And the first one is my hands down favorite. You will probably not be surprised at all once you see it. So this year it looks like they are going with supernatural or mystical creatures, and I love that theme. I think this is going to be super fun all year. I just hope they don't skip too many, but the first one is called Mermaid. And I think they used artwork hand drawn by somebody who works for them. So kind of interesting. I also noticed on the website it says something about the ornaments in the mermaid's hair represent some of the other inks they've had in past collections. So I think there's like seashell in there. I forget the other ones, but it's kind of a little interesting Easter egg. You can check it out on their website if you want to see exactly what they were. So you can see these are just massive bottles, and I'm here for it. So this one, I was initially really confused about what the base color was, because this one, I love how I said none of these were chroma shaders, and a few of them kind of are. This one actually has pretty heavy shading. And oh no! All right, we're gonna have a little color mixing here. This one, I mean, as you can see, it's going down very green, but you immediately see purple. So at first I was like, is the base color purple or green? I think it's green, but a little confusing. We are going to grab a Q-tip and see if we can suck up a little of that. There, that's a little better. So I feel like this is a completely aptly named ink. This ink is gorgeous. Zoom in a little bit. We'll do much better close-ups once everything is dry. I love how purple that shimmer is at the bottom too. For those of us who use shimmer, I think at least part of the appeal is shaking it up in the bottle. It looks so magical every time. Ugh, I am obsessed with this ink. I'm really glad I have 100 milliliters of this. I do not want to ever run out of this. I can't believe this is like a little limited edition ink for them though. This feels too special to only come out once. So moving on with our mystical creatures. February's ink, I feel like this was a perfect pick for February, is Phoenix. And look at that shimmer at the bottom. So pretty. And this, unsurprisingly, is going to be a reddish, very fiery ink with a lot of shimmer. So I think, I could be wrong about this because, like I said, these are the first ink of the month purchases that I've made. But at least, like, kind of looking back, I think the ink of the months are always shimmer, at least recently. Could be wrong on that, but so far they all seem to be shimmers, and very strong shimmers. So this is an orangey red, very punchy. It does seem to dull down a tiny bit as it dries, which I'm a little disappointed by, because that color that it goes down wet is fabulous. I'm obsessed with it. The color that it dries down to is still really beautiful. I still really like it, but I wish it would stay that color. I'm trying to go right into our name here. I think you can tell over here it's already starting to dull down just a little. It's still vibrant. It is still really, really nice. But it's not that super, super bright color that it goes down. So we only have one ink left. I did purchase a few other ones, but the other inks that I purchased were not new for Van Diemen's. They're ones that I figured a lot of folks have probably already seen. They were ones that either that were on a deep discount. I think I got Anna's hummingbird face for like, it was less than $5. It was a really good deal. They're trying to get rid of, I think, those 30 milliliter size bottles. And I got a few from the feline collection that I didn't already own. I owned most of those inks, but there were a few I didn't have yet, so I got a few more. I think I got Persian Princess, Purr. I recently got Kitten Paws. And I think Here Kitty Kitty was the other one I got. And then the only other ink I purchased that I'm not going to show today was from their Greek Heroes collection. I purchased Odysseus. And it's really pretty, but I really wanted to focus on the things that were a little bit newer that you guys may not have seen elsewhere. So hopefully that was a good choice. So March's ink of the month was Faun. This is my least favorite of the three that I purchased. It is really nice. It's just very dark. And I'm not generally a big fan of super dark inks. What I may end up doing, because I have so much of this, and it is really nice, and the shimmer is stunning. I have some, they're from different brands, but I have some ink dilution. I think it's called Dilution Solution from Birmingham Pen Co. So I'm considering maybe trying that out on this ink, kind of maybe decanting some of this ink into a smaller bottle and playing around with that, because this color is really pretty, but it's just really, really dark. But I think if we could lighten that up a little bit, the actual color, it's like a nice, pretty mossy green, and I'm a sucker for greens. So I may play around with this to see how I can make it a little bit more usable for me. But if you like dark mossy greens, jump on this before it's gone. My understanding is that once they're sold out, they do not bring them back, which bums me out. Now their May ink ended up being one called Dragon. I don't have it. I would like it. It's really pretty. It's a really deep purple. And I think it might have, it's been a bit since I looked. I think it might have a red shimmer or purple or both. Van Diemen's does a lot of shimmers that look different from different angles. I think it might be a combo of red and purple, but take a look at their website. It's really pretty. Would not mind having that. So we're going to give this a few minutes to dry. Then we'll come back and take a look at these all close up and compare them to the original swatches that I did. All right, we are back. I think everything's about dry. Phoenix took a little bit longer than the others. It may be a tiny bit damp, but I think we're there. So we are going to do some close-ups here. So first up, we had Gulfstream. This is such a beautiful ink. And I like that there is, I don't know, some depth to this ink. It's not just completely flat. Really pretty. Now this one I felt like was a little flatter, and this tends to be true on the swatch cards versus what it looks like on Tomoe River paper. I really liked how this one kind of looked a little greener, I guess, down at the bottom on the Wearingeul swatch card. These are Col-o-ring on the right and Wearingeul on the left swatch cards. So really, really pretty. It's not as vibrant as I usually go for in a teal, but I actually really love this ink. Next up is Warm Waters. This one is definitely a little more vibrant. This is, I think, maybe normally what I would tend to go for. It's a little bluer, a little brighter. But I think I actually prefer Gulfstream. I think there's just something a little more unique to it. Warm Waters wasn't completely different on the swatch cards. I feel like it was fairly similar. In real life, the Col-o-ring card especially shows up a little bit lighter, but there's not a significant difference. Really, really solid, pretty turquoise. Moana Nui, I think, is really pretty. That shimmer just gives it something special. At least with my dip pen, you can see a ton of that shimmer showed up in the writing sample as well. Now, I think I didn't look this one up again. I think this is supposed to be a mixture of silver and gold shimmer. To me, especially in person, it just looks champagne, but I love champagne shimmer, so I am perfectly okay with that. Very, very similar on the swatch cards. Not a big difference here. You do get a tiny bit of almost an indigo in the haloing, but nothing that's going to show up in a writing sample. Now here's where we get more of a difference. So Spice Root, I adore on the Tomoe River paper. I didn't like it as much on the swatch cards. I love, and I think it's showing up fairly well on camera. It's a little lighter in person, but there's almost a pink undertone to this one on Tomoe River paper. It's a very pinky brown. You get a little bit less of it in the writing sample. And the writing sample is showing up a little dark on screen. There's a lot more shimmer showing up on my end as well. Having some difficulty getting this to focus properly. But that pink is really what I'm loving here. Now on the swatch cards, this one showed up much yellower. It's a very almost brassy color. So the shimmer in this I think is just a plain gold. I'm not mad about that because I think this works really well for what this ink is supposed to be. But I vastly prefer this on the Tomoe River paper. So this could be a cool one to kind of play around with on different papers, see how it looks on maybe like Midori or Clairefontaine, Rhodia, some of the different options. Ireful might be an interesting one to see this on. Polynesian Hibiscus is brighter in person, so it's pretty vibrant on camera, but this is even brighter in real life. It is so, so vibrant. And not significantly different on the swatch cards, but I feel like it shows up a little cooler on the Tomoe River paper and a little bit warmer on these swatch cards. So something to keep in mind. I feel like this would probably be kind of warm on Ireful paper. Giant Pacific Octopus had quite a bit of difference as well. So you can see it is darker and flatter on the swatch cards. I love it on the Tomoe River paper. I actually really like both. I think this kind of more grayish purple is also really pretty. So I think this again would be a really fun one to play around with on different papers. It's not showing up fabulously on camera, but the same almost like chroma shading that you're getting going on in the larger ink samples is showing up in the writing sample as well for me in person. It's not as extreme, of course, but it's just showing up darker and more difficult to see on camera. So I think this one could be a lot of fun to play around with. I love that you can get totally different looks with this one depending on the paper you use. 90 Degrees North looked pretty similar to me. I think it's a little paler and cooler on the Tomoe River paper. And don't forget, this is where we had that little little incident. That little bit of green is not from this ink, that is from Mermaid below. So this is a cool ink regardless, but it does show up, I think, just a little cooler on Tomoe River paper and a tiny bit warmer on the swatch cards. So pretty. You definitely get that blue haloing in both. I think the pink shows up really well in both as well. And that one has silver shimmer, which makes sense for an Arctic collection. Mermaid, again, was fairly similar. I think the green undertone shows up better and stronger on the swatch cards, and the purple shows up stronger on the Tomoe River paper. According to their website, this is actually the first time they've used this specific shimmer. It's a pale lavender. And I really like this one. I think it's pretty. I like that they didn't just go for a standard silver. And our last two. So Phoenix looks a little more different than I was expecting. So I think you get more of that orangey tone that stays around after it dries on the swatch card, particularly the Col-o-ring swatch card, versus the Wearingeul looks just a little darker. You get more of the wine red in here. Whereas on the Tomoe River paper, I think you completely lose that orange and you get more of a pink. So this reminds me almost a little bit of like the Young King by Wearingeul on the Tomoe River paper, but not on here. This is way too orange on this paper. I like both. So again, this kind of like giant Pacific octopus, I think this one could be really fun to play with and can give you different effects on different paper. I love the shimmer on this too. So I think they said that this was supposed to be a gold shimmer that under certain conditions looks pink and copper. I am just seeing pink on both of these, and I love that because I think the pink shimmer against this red is so cool. I don't think I have anything quite like that. So I think that's a really fun combination. Also, it said that this is supposed to have a sheen to it. I think it's an olive gold sheen, and I'm barely seeing any of that on the Tomoe River paper. However, in the swatch cards, it's not going to show up beautifully on camera, but you can see here, you get a good chunk of that, as well as kind of like a wobbly line here on the Wearingeul card. You do get that sheen. So kind of interesting, depending on what paper you're using, you may end up getting some of that sheen. It's not going to be a super sheener. I don't know if you're ever really going to see it in your writing sample, but fun to play around with. Something else to note is that the shimmer is showing up. I think you can see it better down here than you can when I did a close-up. The shimmer is actually really strong in the writing sample, but it can be difficult to get that to show up on camera sometimes. And then Faun. So Faun, like I said, is a little dark for me for daily use, but I might play around with this to see how I can make it a little more usable. And this one also, I think, had a two-toned shimmer. So from one angle, it looks aqua. And that's pretty much all that I'm seeing here. I was able to see when I turned it in just the right way. It's supposed to be purple from another angle, and I'm trying to see if I can get it to do it here. It was difficult for me to see even in person. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get it here on screen. Let's try with our swatch card. Now, if this green was the color that you're getting on the edges here, I would have been thrilled with it. But, I mean, in the middle, at least on these swatch cards, it's almost black. That is way too dark for me. I don't know if we're going to get the purple. I did see hints of it, so if you play around with this, you may see the purple shimmer, but at least on the ones I've tried so far, I'm getting a lot of aqua, and it is fun. I really like the aqua shimmer on that green ink. So I don't have the dragon. I really want to try it. If you're interested in it, I would say buy it before it sells out. Mermaid, I just checked, is sold out on their website right now. Phoenix and Faun are still available. Also, like I said, these World Oceans collections, these were the ones that were out when I tried it. I obviously don't have all of the inks in each of these little mini collections, but I did get one from Arctic, a few from Pacific, a few from Indian, and one from Atlantic. They also have a new one out. They are doing, let me see what it's called. I think their new collection is for Southern Ocean. These were not available when I purchased these, but they have some really beautiful ones that I'd like to try. So take a look at them. Like I said, I think they're available just from Van Diemen's and Pen Chalet. So take a look. Which of these do you like the most? Or is there anything else from the World Oceans collection that you have your eye on? Are these ones that you've seen before? I'm really curious. I'm personally obsessed with 90 Degrees North and Mermaid. I think that's probably no surprise to anyone, but Giant Pacific Octopus is one that I am so glad that I added. I kind of like Polynesian Hibiscus. I put it in and out of my cart a few times, wasn't sure if I needed it, and I am so glad because this color is so pretty. So let me know what you like. More ink hauls coming up soon. I still have a ton of stuff to show you from my so-and-so hauls. We even have more Kitty Ink Pot. I thought I was done with Kitty Ink Pot, but I ordered a few more. So we have Kitty Ink Pot to look forward to, as well as several other brands, including Fan Yan Tan, a lot of Dream Ink, some Collection Traced, Ink Institute, and a few more. So please stay tuned. If you're not already, please hit that subscribe button, like the video, and I hope to see you soon.